Hello everybody, my name is Jim Sesters, and I'm going to be honest with you for a second or two here. These videos are a goal of mine, and they're called Late Onset Blues Guitar, which simply is talking about learning guitar at an older age. And I'll get into that in a little bit. My journey has been very interesting, and I wanted to share it with people. But to be clear and honest, I'm also one of the co-founders of Sestronics, and Sestronics makes guitar accessories. And Sestronics has given me the opportunity, or they're going to sponsor this series of learning videos for people over 50 or 60 who might want to learn guitar, because I've been through the process and I've learned a lot. I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and what my background is, and why I think I'm uniquely qualified to do this. I have been a semi-professional bass player, playing R&B and blues for many years, probably more than I want to actually tell you about. And a few years ago, 10 years ago to be exact, I was asked to play guitar in a band. I said, well, that'd be a great opportunity, because I thought that bass translated to guitar. It doesn't. There's tons of things a bass player does and tons of things a guitar player does that aren't really the same technique. Just because you can play some strings doesn't mean you can play each one. So my journey took 10 years from where I am today, and it certainly isn't complete. But along the way, I made a lot of mistakes. I actually built bad habits and did things that are not necessarily wonderful. And then the other thing about me is I've hosted blues jams for years and years. We've had some very successful blues jams here in Colorado Springs for the last 10 or 15 years we've been doing it. Most of that I was playing bass, and as I played guitar, I started actually playing guitar in the jams too. But one of the interesting things about it is when I first started playing guitar, and to be honest with you, I could actually play chords. I could make bar chords and a few things like this, but I really didn't have any technique at all. No vibratos, no idea of how to make a great sounding rhythm part. Just wanted to play guitar. And now that I'm in jams and leading jams, I see older people coming in, and they are making the same mistakes I made. And so what I want to do is a series of 10-minute videos is what we're going to be shooting for, is to kind of go over the mistakes I made and stop you from making them if you so choose. Because I see the same things happening a lot of times. And you say, well, can people over 50, 60, can they really learn guitar? The answer is yes, you can. But don't put your kid in the next room and give him something to learn and realize in a week he has it down, and you play for 2 months and you don't. The problem with being old is you don't learn as fast as when you were kids. But you have a good crystal memory, and you should be able to eventually use good judgment in your playing and kind of skip the parts that you may not need. Whereas kids are going to go through a lot of things and do a lot of and go through a lot of territory. So, but I think if you know where you want to go, particularly if it's in the blues, we've got a direction for you. And I think you can skip the mistakes I made, and hopefully in a few years or less, depending on the amount of time you practice, be a considerable force, and probably beyond what you might have thought you could get to. So for a lot of people, I've talked to them at the jam sessions, and they retire or getting close to retiring. They might have quit playing guitar when they were 20 because they had a family and decided they had no room in their life for it. Others never played, and it's been a lifelong dream of theirs to get up in front of people and play. Or some people may just want to do home recording and want to be capable of doing the parts themselves. Who knows, what motivations people have. But the bottom line is that you can learn this at any age. I'm going to say this once and probably won't mention it again, but I'm 71. And I'm surprised I was able to learn as much as I have during this particular time. And now the question comes up, why are we talking about the blues? Well, I grew up personally with a lot of Motown. My grandmother was a gospel singer from Kentucky. And she used to put on the Motown because I think it reminded her of some of the stuff that she did. Meanwhile, I was pretty unaware, but I was being programmed with it. And now that's my favorite kind of music. And Motown is not very far from the blues, especially Al Green and some of those people. His music translates back and forth, Ray Charles. All that stuff is barely out of the blues, and it's a wonderful, wonderful genre. But the blues has something that rock doesn't. It has what jazz has, is jazz uses standard songs, and you probably have to learn 30 or 40 standard songs to be able to play jazz and be credible. But the learning curve for jazz is very high, and the learning curve for blues is not so high. So blues generally is in a simpler format. We call it the 1-4-5, and it's either a shuffle or straight ahead. And there's tons of variations. There's minor, there's major, and it's as complex as you want to make it. But it's also simple enough for somebody that doesn't know it. May not know a tune, they can hang with you, and that's the beauty of the blues. It's kind of a jammer's dream in that sense. And there are people that look down on it, but I don't, because it's very foundational to rock. It's very foundational to a lot of things. And if you can play good blues, you can shift into a lot of other artistry. And that's kind of why we're doing the blues. And then I want to talk a little bit, I'll tell you what we're going to get into in this series. This is the first of the series, and it's an introduction, and I just wanted to explain who I was and why I thought that I could help you by you not repeating my mistakes. And some of the topics we're going to cover initially, in the order of what I think is important, is body physics. When I was taking lessons, people would start me out playing scales. Scales didn't mean anything to me, especially when I wasn't coordinated enough to hit the strings on the guitar. So the first lesson I want to talk about is body physics. The second thing that's as important, or maybe more important, is building a rhythm clock in your body. You've got to have good rhythm. I'm in these jam sessions all the time, and people with bad rhythm, and I'm talking about rhythm where people can't follow what you're doing. They may try to lead off a song, and everybody stares at them because it doesn't make any sense. I don't want you to have to do that. When I first started, I used to learn out of fake books, and that for me was a bad thing because I would just change chords where I thought I should change them and not necessarily in time. And that built a bad rhythm clock in me. And I don't want you guys to do that. So one of our lessons is building your rhythm clock. I also want to talk about what I call short chords, which is basically a version of the cage system. But it's really good to know different positions, even if you're not getting really fancy, to play some of the chords, because it gives you some different ideas. And we want to talk a little bit about that. And then I want to talk about guitars and picks. You have to find a guitar that fits you. And if you decide to play with a pick, maybe there's a certain kind of pick that works better for the sound that you might want. Early on, the problem is going to be you're probably not learned enough, or not good enough with the instrument to really pick a good guitar for yourself, because you don't know what you want. It's a journey to figure out. I bought a lot of guitars and sold a lot of guitars and did a lot of things that didn't make sense, but I did them anyway, with the idea of speeding up the journey. And I'm going to give you a few tips and a few things that you might think about as you want to purchase your guitar or think about your next guitar. And then I want to talk about another lesson about, if you're playing live, how are you heard in the mix? Being heard on stage in the mix is a big deal, especially the first time you get into a jam and you don't know where your guitar went. It's a common problem, and turning up the volume is not necessarily the answer to that. And one of the early ones we want to talk about too is hearing protection. Most people don't talk about it, but jam stages particularly are really loud. And hearing loss is cumulative. And I have some friends of mine that work in the hearing industry and in the ear monitor industry for that matter, that know a lot about this, and I may bring someone on to talk to you about it, because it's really important that you protect your hearing, especially as you're older and you're going to lose more hearing. Hearing never comes back. When you break the cilia off in the cochlea, they're gone, they don't grow back. And so that's why older people often can't hear very well. And so I don't know what hearing you have, but let's save it. That's what that's about. And I've got a lot of other good things planned, but basically I wanted to give you an introduction as to who I am and to what I'm trying to do. And maybe later on in the series I'll tell you a little bit about the Sestronics accessories we're making and see if they might be something you're interested in. So this is a passion of mine, to teach people not to make my mistakes. And I think you're going to do really well, or at least it'll give you the opportunity to start on a good path. So thanks for listening, and we'll be doing another video shortly, and I hope you guys will tune into that.